should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. Preferably in a residential area.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing.
What up? What is happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and I've been listening to this guy for the past 4 years now from the Covino Rich show on SiriusXM Radio. Rich Davis is on Hoppe Hour.
Wow.
What's up, dude?
Dude, I mean, that's a heck of an intro. I'm loving this Hoppe Hour.
Dude, I bring so much energy into the show. Like, we were just talking off air. Hey, man, how's it going? Been listening for 4 years, talking about radio. And then once the mic's on, I'm all hyper. You know what I mean?
Listen, man, I'll tell you what. I'm with you, man. I like listening to radio where people are fired up and either happy or passionate. You hear certain talk shows or any, certain podcasts or they don't have that energy, and I don't get it at all because I feel like you need to bring the energy. So, man, you're killing it so far.
What do you think of where radio is at? Because what I like about you guys is you guys bring the passion every single day. But I feel like a lot of shows now, these guys that are veterans, they just seem like they're just kind of done with it, and they're just turning on the mic and talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, man, some of those folks, I mean, people that have been in a long time, I get where it's easy to say they're just collecting a paycheck because, I mean, I'm sure there's some people that are, but I feel like I'm still in it to win it, man. I don't feel like Covino and I are at the peak of our game yet. There's a lot of people that probably peaked at some point, and now they're just still doing their career. And I can see where you lose motivation that way. But I'm still hungry, man. Still want to win. When
do you think you guys will peak? Because each and every year, you guys are getting bigger. I mean, you guys went from New York City to Los Angeles. So, like, you guys are about to explode. Like, to me, I feel like this is going to be your year. You know what I mean? I mean, you guys get great interviews. You guys have a good show. But I feel like this is going to be your year. Don't you kind of sense that?
Yo, I hope what you're saying is absolutely true. I tell you what, we took the chance to move to LA with the hope of just making the radio show bigger. But it seems like I don't know if you get this feeling too that you can't really just do radio anymore. So I sort of got the vibe that I got to do radio, I got to do TV, you got to do online stuff. You got to do a million different things to really make an impact now. Radio itself, I don't think that's enough, so I think LA is the right step for that. That's why we sort of made this move, you know?
I think you guys should do a side podcast and then do some periscopes so then people can find your show. Because to me, the shows that just do a show on Sirius or just do a show on FM are the ones that just kind of hang out and never really grow. But the ones that promote as much as possible, like you guys, are the ones that reach the peak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, man, we started last night. Coincidentally, was our first weekly video podcast, I guess you'd say. When we got out here to LA, Maria Menounos and her longtime boyfriend Kevin run that company AfterBuzz, and they let Covino and I just use their studios. And every Thursday night, we're going to do like an hour video podcast, essentially video cast, where it's just us sort of hanging out, recapping what we do, trying to get new people that don't have satellite to know who we are. That's sort of the goal. So you're right on the right track, man.
What's it like when you do a video cast? Because to me, I do it with Periscope. I'll film me ranting about the news and upload it. And isn't it weird when you have the video version on? Like, you actually have to look half presentable. Like, obviously, you're not in a suit like Anderson Cooper. But, like, right now, I'm sort of slouched in my chair just hanging out. But if I had Hoppe TV on, you have to sort of, like, look good. Isn't it kind of weird when you have to, like, look good on camera?
I always find that interesting because certain radio hosts never think about looking good. But you know what? I mean, you notice some people come to work to the studio dressed up, and I guess that's a good mindset to have because nowadays, remember when I was a young kid and when you were a younger kid, before there was any internet or before people could see what you looked like, there was that fun illusion of, I wonder what the radio host or that guy looks like or what she looks like. Now you could find out. So you got to sort of look good. If you're tweeting or Instagramming or Snapchatting something you're doing, you can't look like a schlub if you want people to take you serious, to be honest.
Like, this is weird, but I have to put some gel in my hair. It doesn't really matter what shirt I wear, but if I don't have gel in my hair, it looks very bland because my hair doesn't grow the best. So, like, I'm very conscious of looking good whenever I have a guest in. Like, I always want to look presentable because to me, Rich, if you don't look the best, people might just judge you off of that and not give your show a chance.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, Covino and I always joke that if we look bad in one picture, that's an opportunity for listeners to just bust our chops and make fun of us. And you know, it's all in good fun, but you really do have to make sure you're not looking like a slob. And hey, if you're a single guy doing a radio show, you want to look good too, to maybe get some female listeners loving you too. There's no harm in that.
Do you ever do this where, let's say you have a big guest, like I had Jim Norton on my show about a month ago when he came to Tampa, and I wanted to look good for that pick because I've been a huge fan of him for 10 years now. So when I was at the gym, I was lifting, trying to look good for the pick. Do you ever have that when you know a guest is coming in that week, so you hit the gym even harder?
Let me tell you something, brother. When there's an attractive woman that's going to be on our show, I make sure to look good that day just for my own ego and confidence. And if it's one of my heroes that I know that I'll probably maybe value that photo. Like if I'm meeting Joe Montana or Hulk Hogan or one of my childhood icons, I'll make sure I'm not wearing some crappy shirt that day because I may frame that photo in my office or something. So yeah, no, I'm with you. You're speaking the truth, man.
Who are some guests that you've met where you were in awe? Like for me, when I interviewed Jim Norton, the whole time it was a rush, dude. It did not even seem like it was real. So who are some that you've had on your show where you're like, you're doing the interview and you're like, this can't be real?
That's a good question, man. I'll tell you this. Little Jimmy Norton, he's a great guy, man. Just working for all those years down the hall from him when I was at the SiriusXM studios in New York. He is a great guy, man. You picked a good guy to sort of, I guess, look up to in the comedy radio world. Jimmy Norton's a good guy. As far as people that I was sort of in awe of, I know it sounds silly, but like the first time you meet Hulk Hogan, because if you were a kid that grew up in the 80s or 90s, I mean, the guy, he's not even like a real person. He looks like a character. I'm trying to think of anyone else. You know, there's actors that you meet where they're just super charismatic. Like Neil Patrick Harris is super charismatic. There's certain women that are just gorgeous in person that you look at them and you're like, my goodness, they're so hot. Like a Jessica Alba or a Emmy Rossum or someone that's just so damn beautiful.
Who are some famous people you've met? Who are some famous people that you've met that you were really disappointed in, that were maybe douchebags or too cool for the room?
That's a good question. I'll give you names. Let's see. You know, I know that Lenny Kravitz wasn't a jerk, but Covino really wanted him to be cool only because Covino loves Lenny Kravitz. That's like one of his musical heroes. So the fact that Lenny Kravitz was just sort of like, hey, what's up, guys? Covino was a little let down. But as far as jerks go, he wasn't a jerk. As far as jerks go, I don't know. To be honest, not many big jerks. I know that I always find it funny that some artists think they're more important than they are. Do you remember an artist, James Blunt? He sang a song, You're Beautiful.
Yeah, he had that one hit.
Yeah, he was just he was like a douche for no reason, and like he didn't, Andrew Dice Clay. I mean, I loved his comedy as a kid, but Andrew Dice Clay walks in the studio like he owns it, a little disrespectful. Gene Simmons of Kiss is one of those guys that just doesn't really have that much respect for anyone that's interviewing him. I'm trying to think who else let me down. What's her name? Tara Reid was offended because we asked her if she was going to party or something like that. And, Tara Reid has a reputation of being like a party hussy, so I don't know why that was offensive.
Oh, heaven forbid you ask her that when she's known for doing coke. Like, really?
At the time, Tara Reid was in the headlines because she was, like, getting bad boob jobs and snorting coke. Meanwhile, we saw her at a party and asked her, hey, you going to go have fun in that party time? Like, what's your drink of choice? And she seemed to be offended. Give me a break.
It is weird when these famous people, it gets to their heads and you can't ask them certain things. Like, even though you're famous and you have more money than us, it doesn't mean that you're not a human being. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Hoppe, let me tell you one more. I found it funny. Britney Spears is not that she is rude, but Britney Spears is so affected by being such a, I guess you would say, a star, that you don't have a regular interview with Britney Spears. When you ask her a question, she looks at her publicist, who will then mouth an answer to her, and then she'll answer you. So it's almost like you're speaking to a blank person, if that makes sense.
Like a robot.
Yeah, that's weird.
What are some interviews that you thought would be normal or just average and just went down the most weirdest, bizarre path?
Oh, Hoppy, I wish I knew the girl's name, but do you ever watch I'm sure some of your listeners have seen Orange is the New Black on Netflix?
Yeah.
The girl with the lesbian that's like redhead, orange hair, sort of?
Oh, the one from That 70s Show?
No. There's a different one. She has like reddish orange hair. She was in Can't Hardly Wait, I think back in the day, that movie from the 90s. But anyway, she came in. I thought it was going to be a simple, quick interview. She was like high or hungover or something where it went down a path that it was just absurd. And a good path that an interview went down. The famous Fonzie, Henry Winkler, I thought it was just going to be, hey, we're having, the Fonz on the show, Throwback Thursday, Henry Winkler. He was Fonzie, one of the most iconic characters. And he ended up being a friend of the show where he's almost like a guy that gives us advice now, or someone, that we remain in contact with. It's odd who you stay in contact with also.
Now, for people who haven't heard your show, what's it like?
Our show is, our show, you could say it's a guy show, but it really is for everyone. Recently we had that conversation because, a lot of times we'd say, oh, it's a guy show. But quite frankly, man, it's a show that if you just like a good time, if you like to talk about pop culture, music, relationships, sports, entertainment, Covino and I do a 3-hour talk show every day where we just sort of, shoot the breeze, have a good conversation just about anything, about anything that's going on in your lives, our lives. It's just a fun show, like a topical show. I really, it's so much fun, man. It really is.
What I like about your show is you can tell that you guys are friends, because there's a lot of these shows that I feel like they're forced to make a show and it just doesn't sound real because it's just forced.
Let me ask you, because I know you listen to our show and you said you were I know you were also a big Opie and Anthony fan, and now you listen to Opie and Jim. Could you tell that they were not getting along towards the end as a listener?
I couldn't even guess whatsoever. Those guys made it seem like they were friends. Like, you could tell maybe they didn't hang outside once they were done, but I listened to them every morning, and I listened to Opie and Jim and Anthony. I mean, you could not tell at all that they didn't like each other. It was weird. Like, they were really good.
I agree. I think they did a good job of working together, not letting on that they were not getting along, because they did a heck of a job not liking each other.
I mean, those guys are legends. Like, are there any people that you look up to? Because to me, I didn't grow up with Howard because he wasn't on when I was listening to the radio, but I listened to Opie and Anthony, and those are the guys that basically influenced me to do like a talk show that's kind of edgy. So who are people that influenced you?
It's so funny because now, as a grown man that does my own radio talk show, now I appreciate the Howards and the Opie and Ants of the world. But to be honest, growing up, I was more of a top 40 guy. So I was influenced by guys like Elvis Duran or Paul Cubby Bryant, Kid Kelly, some of the guys that were on Z100 in New York. Some of the top 40 DJs were the template that I looked at, because I didn't start doing guy talk radio until later on. So I come from a little different perspective. But those are some good radio. I think we're talking about a lot of good people there.
What's it like when you go from doing like top 40 radio, which is like, I wouldn't say safe, but it's easy to do in a way, and then you go.
It is. It's hard to do in a way because you have to make sure you're sticking to a top 40 brand. It's hard in that respect, but it's safe. And you never really feel like you're truly being yourself. I thought when I do stuff on Hits One or when I was on Z100, I had a great time doing that. But it's very hard to feel like you're genuinely being yourself. Because if you can't bring up something real, I don't know. It's just it's almost like you're being more of a presenter, less of a host, because you're just sort of presenting the music and all that. It's different,
What do you think of radio hosts that just aren't themselves, where when the mic's on, they're one type of person, but once it's off, they might be antisocial or too cool for the room? Like, what's your take on people that aren't real?
You know, it's funny you should ask that, because a lot of people, I feel like there's a lot of people that, you're right, they're one way on the air, and then you meet them, and they're completely different. That's not me. What's funny is that the same cheesy, talkative bozo I am is how I am off the air and on the air. Covino's a loudmouth, opinionated guy on the air, but off the air, Covino's a real chill guy. And, you know, sometimes the radio's an outlet for people, and sometimes the radio is just an extension of who you are. And I don't think anyone's faking it. Like, do you feel like you're a little quieter off the air, and then when you do your show, do you feel like you step it up?
Way more. I think me doing this show and me being more real helps open me up, because sometimes I get a bit awkward or nervous in social situations. But I think as my show improves and progresses, I'm becoming more of myself. So obviously, I'm not going out and, let's say, to a game or to a bar and saying that Kim Kardashian is a dumb bitch. But when I'm on the air, I'm much more outspoken. So I think I'm a lot like Covino. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, and everyone's got and that's a lot of people, man. A lot of people feel like the radio is their outlet to be I guess you would say, be the exaggerated version of themselves, who they really are.
But the thing is, I'm not like fake where I'm one person on there or off air. It's just I'm like this times 10. Like you saw when we were talking off the air, I was real chill. But once it was on, I was like, what up? What's happening? That's how I approach radio. Is that I do like entertainment. You know what I mean? That's my approach.
Of course, man. I think and I think you're on the right track with that. I think you do a great job. Let me tell you, it's radio is a fun thing. Entertaining people. The fact that people will listen to you and they have a good time, and you can help people get through their day if they're having a rough day and they're listening to you laughing. That's really cool, man. I'll be honest. Sometimes I think about that, and it blows my mind. It's really rewarding in a weird way. I mean, I'm not, it's not like we're defending the country or putting out fires, or it's not like we're doing anything really noble, but at the same time, you're doing something important. You're entertaining people, and that's something in itself, you know?
Isn't it weird, like, because my brand is growing here because of guys like Mike Kelta and Drew Garabo on 102.5 The Bone that give me exposure and have helped me in Tampa. Isn't it weird when people come up to you and they say that one bitch you did made their day? Because for me, I'm just 22 years old, and it's weird to think that I'm making an impact on these hardworking truck drivers or these landscapers. How awesome is it that us talking into the mic makes their day, Rich?
That is, it's so cool, man. When Covino and I go do an event, or we have, or we're live from somewhere, when we meet guys and girls that listen to the show that thank us because, hey, we helped them through a time. Hey, I don't know, their mom or dad was sick and they were really bummed out. But when they listened to our show, they got to forget about their troubles for a couple hours a day. That's really it's really cool, man. It really is. You feel like what you're doing is impactful in a weird way, you know?
When was a time that you maybe thought the show wasn't going to be the best, but then you had this moment on air when you knew it was going to work? You know what I mean?
You know, what's so funny is part of why Covino and I feel are still on the air and we're still doing what we do is we were stupidly confident. Like in the beginning, when we first started doing radio, we were on Sirius before Sirius and XM merged, and we were doing Maxim Radio, which was, we were sponsored by the old magazine Maxim. I was convinced that there's no way. We never even thought that, what if the show was going to go bad? So we weren't even allowed to sort of screw with our own head. But there's days we go in where we're sort of, on an individual show basis, there's days, Hoppy, where we go in and we're like, oh, crap, what are we going to talk about today? There's nothing really going on. And sometimes those are the best shows when something just sort of pops up.
What is the key to finding prep when it's a slow news day? Because, dude, I've been doing a lot of interviews, but I'm having a hard time finding news. So what's the key to finding prep that would make the most real radio? You know what I mean?
You know what? To be honest, it sounds like a ridiculous source because a lot of people say, I go to this website or I do this or that. I am dead set on. Hold on one second. My wife's calling. Let me hang up on her. Hold on one second. Sent a voicemail. I'm on the radio.
Sorry, Mrs. Davis.
Yeah, geez, call me later. So I find Facebook interesting. I know that might sound crazy, right?
In what way?
I scroll through my news feed because all your friends, listeners, and people you know are almost in a weird way doing the work for you, because you almost get a gauge of what your friends and family find interesting, because they're copying and pasting these articles or thoughts or stories or issues, or your friends and family and listeners, believe it or not, are sort of feeding you your information. Like if I see an article on the internet, I don't know if anyone finds it interesting but me, but if I see 20 different listeners post an article about something they saw, in my mind I'm like, oh, look, clearly that's it's popular. So I think Facebook, believe it or not, is like a little secret weapon, because anyone in your news feed is your friend, family, or listener. And if you see the same thing popping up multiple times, like, I don't know, a story about why relationships all end or something, then, clearly it's a good enough article to talk about.
What do you think of like Facebook and like Twitter? Like, how has it changed radio since you guys have been doing it so long that you did it when it wasn't there? How has it changed the business?
Yo, man, it changed the game. But here's the interesting part of that. I don't know what to do anymore, and either does Covino, and I think a lot of hosts, and not only hosts, Hoppy, I think a lot of celebrities that we talk to don't know, do they have to do Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, everything, or do you do a couple? Do you do everyone? It's almost to the point where I think you don't know where to stop. Like, let me ask you, are you doing every one of those things?
Yeah, because I have to plug it for kids my age, because it's weird. I used to never plug Hoppe Hour on Snapchat, and I would get decent listens. But now I plug it on Snapchat, and I'll get messages from kids from high school that are like, oh, wait, you're doing a podcast? So to me, you have to be on every outlet. Obviously, I'm not on like Tumblr, but I'm on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Dude, you have to be in 2016.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, it's interesting because it's, like you said, you're connecting with your audience outside of your show, which is valuable. There's a lot of value in that. And if your audience feels like you're open and connecting to them, then I think you're due for success. I really do. I think some of the shows that shut down, I'll give you a good analogy. David Letterman was a legend of late night TV, but there came a point where Dave Letterman was on from 11:30 to 12:30 at night. Outside of that 1 hour, you never really heard about David Letterman. Jimmy Fallon, whether you like him or not, or Kimmel, those guys exist online. They tweet, they send videos. There's videos on YouTube. People are sharing bits from the night before, and they're available. And I think you need to be available to your audience. Like if your audience thinks, oh, they can only catch the Hoppe Hour and that's it. That's not enough. You need to be on all the other things.
Where do you want to see your show in 5 years as you're growing on social media and you're growing by the day?
I want us to be on a better channel on SiriusXM. Better channel meaning I feel like we should be. I think there's a channel that doesn't exist yet that should exist, where it's maybe like younger guy talk programming.
That's what I want to do, dude.
Yeah, and hey, listen, maybe by the time it happens, you'll be ready for the call.
That'd be awesome.
I think that's where we want to head. I'd like to help create a channel like that, and also, Covino and I gave up our daily SNY TV show in New York. We're constantly having meetings, and it's if people don't know, it's not that easy to just jump right back on TV. But I think I'm pretty confident that we're headed back there. I think we'll get a TV show within the next year. So.
Now, where can people find your work online and on the radio?
You can always find us everywhere at Covino and Rich, Covino, Covino and Rich, and follow us and say what's up. And I appreciate you letting me hop on with you here, man.
Well, dude, keep up the good work, man. It was one of those things where I got XM Radio 4 years ago for Opie and Anthony, and I was looking through the radio. I found like Ron and Fez, and then I found you guys, and I never heard of you. And the first 5 minutes, I was intrigued, and I've been listening ever since, man. So keep up the good work, dude. You guys get me through the day when I'm bored.
Thank you so much, and good luck with your stuff, and we will stay in touch, my man. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks, Rich.
All right, later, buddy.
All right, bye.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.